Welcome to the Law Shit You Should Know podcast. We're here to talk a little bit about the law
and a whole lot about nothing. Every week, we have a new guest to discuss current events, legal drama, and dive even deeper into
the Law Shit You Should Know. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Law Shit You Should Know with Elina Santana
and Leslie Marenko
and the amazing James Schwitalla.
Hello there, everybody out in podcast world.
In podcast land.
We're going to be famous, Schwitalla.
We are going to be famous.
We're not famous yet?
I mean, we kind of are, but like we're going to be more famous.
Are we famous already?
Infamous?
Well, Jimmy, just for those who don't already know who you are, can you tell everyone who's watching and listening who you are, what you do?
I am a bankruptcy lawyer. I am a native of South Florida. I've been here my whole life.
Weird. Already weird, but
yeah,
okay.
I represent mostly debtors.
I am a native of South Florida who's been here.
There's no people like you, really. I mean, nobody's really born and raised here. Like
special unicorns. We're
especially old people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they all left. They all said, fuck this dumpster fire. We're out of here.
No, yeah.
Like,
last one took the flag.
Fucking train wreck. Like,
and back to Jimmy's
introduction. Back to Schwitalla.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
So bankruptcy lawyer, native of South Florida. Yes, I passed the CPA exam in Texas. I came to Florida, back to Miami after undergrad, and never got that fifth year that I needed to get the Florida CPA to reciprocate. But whatever. I mean,
you're not doing audit statements.
No. But it's nice to be able to understand how a financial statement works.
Yes, that is nice. So, talk to us about bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy. What do you want to know?
I want to know about the different types of bankruptcy.
All right. Well,
let's start there, and then we'll go.
Broad division between consumer and commercial. So those are the two big divisions. Consumer would be like for individuals, families, couples.
And they have chapters.
There's chapters.
What are the numbers? Help me out.
Well, the chapters, for the most part, are available in both consumer and commercial.
Oh, okay. All right.
So for consumer, you can file a Chapter 7.
Okay, Chapter 7.
And it's only
liquidation.
Right. It's only Chapter 7 if you haven't asked enough questions, right? And I have to give props to my good buddy Mitch Nowak, who came up with that.
Okay.
He's also a bankruptcy lawyer, but he's right because Chapter 7 trustees in South Florida are very aggressive.
Yes.
And they have powers.
Very interesting case law comes from those guys.
Right.
Trying to extend their powers, in my opinion.
Yes. And so what you do is you try to help the client improve their situation, not make it worse. So
maybe commit less fraud than what they're trying to do when they first walk into your office.
Unfortunately, sometimes they don't tell you the truth. Even though you're trying to help them, they don't tell you the truth. So broad division.
Not everyone walking into an office to file bankruptcy
is
committing fraud.
Alina.
For the record.
But as we know, all of our clients collectively always don't tell us 100% of the truth.
Oh, no, people lie.
So can you imagine when you are...
As Dr. House would say, everybody lies.
Okay.
Healthy people don't go to the doctor, right? So people with problems, sometimes they're problems of their own creation, but sometimes they're not.
Okay, so that was Chapter 7.
All right,
there is a reorg for the person.
Yes.
This is law school memory right now.
Chapter 13.
There you go.
That could also be Subchapter 5.
And those trustees
and that could be Chapter 11.
seem to have a warm heart. I don't know.
Not so much. It's just the bankruptcy code limits their powers. If they had more power, they would have black cold hearts like the Chapter 7 trustees. Sorry.
Got it.
Sorry to all my Chapter 7 trustee buddies and their counsel.
Excellent.
And then in commercial entity cannot file a Chapter 13, but they can file a 7 or an 11 or a Subchapter 5. So then looking at the chapters, those are also broadly divided into two categories. One is liquidation, which is Chapter 7, regardless of whether you're consumer or commercial.
Okay.
And then there's reorganization, that's
how they did it in law school. There's liquidation and reorganization, guys.
That's right.
Well, so for the people listening who have no idea what those two words mean. So when we talk about liquidation, what does that mean?
Well, it means liquidation of non-exempt assets and potentially recovery of transfers that you made.
So selling all your shit.
Shit that's not protected from creditors.
Okay. And what is protected?
The exempt shit.
What is the exemption? Give me an example.
Okay, your homestead. That's
the homestead property.
That's the most famous exemption in the state of Florida. Right. Your homestead is protected from the claims of creditors.
So let me give you an example.
Okay, let's start with a hypothetical.
A hypothetical.
someone decide, somebody goes to see you, Schwitalla, and you tell them these parameters, right?
Right.
Hey, if you have all this cash sitting in your bank account, that's not exempt, but your home is. And then they do something, they think they're so slick. People think
smart.
they're so smart, especially here in Miami.
Right.
And they go, I've always wanted that granite and gold kitchen.
Right.
Like 18 karat faucet type thing.
It's a
Yep.
sunny
And that's
place for
gonna
shady
cost me
people, Leslie. Sunny place for shady people.
$100,000. And Schwitalla over here told me that my homestead is very protected.
Yeah.
And now they don't see how somebody could possibly know this, as if there
Right.
aren't some things as fucking bank statements
Right.
where you see in and out, right? It's not that hard, guys. You
Documented.
don't need to be a forensic accountant to
Right.
figure out basic, like, money in, money out. And then they go pump 180 allegedly $1,000 into this beautiful kitchen.
Yeah.
Is Chapter 7 trustee potentially able to go rip out their fucking granite countertop and go, oh, you think you're cute? You think you're slick?
Yeah, exactly. So in bankruptcy, there are potential limitations to the homestead exemption. And kind of what you described is a potential 522-0 situation where the trustee can limit your homestead exemption to the extent you've converted non-exempt assets, i.e. the money you described in the bank, into exempt homestead. Now, not all money in the bank is non-exempt. Sure. Some money in the bank can be exempt shit, and exempt shit is good shit, right? So if they converted exempt shit into exempt homestead, it's okay.
It's all right.
It's only a problem if you convert the non-exempt shit into exempt homestead.
And do they actually need to use like the fraudulent transfer statute to claw it back, or is it easier than that? Do they have to prove all that bullshit that we usually do?
No, it's just an objection to claimed exemption, and then they have to. So now that limitation only applies in bankruptcy court. If they do that two-step that you described, and then they don't file a bankruptcy, and a creditor sues them and gets a judgment against them, the creditor could not go against the homestead. Right. This is a limitation that was included in the bankruptcy code back in 2005 when they changed the bankruptcy code. So sometimes I tell my clients, thank you for being honest with me. You told me where all the skeletons are hidden and where all the problems are. You might not want to file a bankruptcy. You might just want to stay outside of bankruptcy.
And I imagine that's your actual advice quite a bit of the time when you come and see somebody's...
But definitely if it exists, I'll tell them,
Well, I don't just mean like in the sketchy sense. I mean in general. I would imagine some people come to you and go, I want to file a bankruptcy, and when you actually start digging into stuff, you go,
you
maybe
might not
the best
to.
idea.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Or maybe it's better to go into that Chapter 13.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So Chapter 13, the trustee doesn't have strong arm powers. So the Chapter 13 trustee cannot touch things.
You're not ripping out your granite.
They cannot take things. They cannot sell things. They cannot sue people. And those are all things that a Chapter 7 trustee can do.
Well, let's take a step back, because I think we're assuming that people listening even know what a trustee is. So what is a trustee, and how does that
A trustee is all your creditors rolled up into one person.
Okay.
Will our power.
That's the way to
and
think of them.
Who picks who the trustee is?
So in Chapter 7, there's a panel of trustees, and when you hit the button and file the case, the court's computer just selects
It's a wheel.
It's
How do you get on
allegedly.
This wheel? How do you get on this wheel, Schwitalla?
Yes, how do you get on the wheel? It's a much coveted spot.
I see.
It's a much coveted spot.
Yes.
So those spots don't open up very.
I imagine
they open up less frequently than a B&I realtor chair. Sorry for all those people who don't know what a B&I realtor chair is. It's a very lucrative position to be in.
And is this true? I've heard the bankruptcy trustees get paid, they're lawyers, right? Generally speaking, right? So they get paid their hourly wage, and then they get paid a percentage of what they can collect for their creditors.
Seriously?
The creditors, right?
Really?
So
You have great motivation to do good for your clients, for your creditor, which is essentially who you're representing.
They're well motivated.
They're well motivated. To take things on appeal and create new case law in my world that really fucking upsets me. Yes.
And I tell you, they're all very good at what they do.
They are.
Yes.
They are.
There are some areas where I practice, for example, in the Middle District, and I am of Florida, and
That is a special.
I'm able to observe significant differences in the level of aggression between Chapter 7 trustees in the Middle District and down here. So they're very good at what they do. So to elaborate a little bit more on what you just described, the Chapter 7 trustee is entitled to a commission, and it's a published commission. It's included within the federal rules of bankruptcy procedure. 28 USC. And their commission isn't super generous, but if you're a Chapter 7 trustee and you happen to be a lawyer, and you can go to the court and say, I've got this case where I'm the Chapter 7 trustee, and here's the list of the Chapter 7 trustee duties, but I also need to do some things that are on my list of attorney for Chapter 7 trustee. So, yes. Judge, will you approve me to hire me as my attorney for myself?
Of course. Of course. Me and my law firm.
So yes, absolutely.
I love that.
So
me
the
and my law firm.
The Chapter 7 trustee many times is able to recover Chapter 7 trustees' fees as well as Chapter 7 attorneys' fees. And then, sometimes they get their other friends involved. People like accountants and consultants and
the people
appraisers
we play golf with on the weekends.
And brokers and stuff like that.
Are there a lot of trustees? How many people are we talking about?
I think there's probably in the Southern District, which would include, there's 3 divisions. There's Miami, there's Fort Lauderdale, and there's the West Palm Beach division.
Sure.
But that actually, it includes Monroe, and it includes points north of Palm Beach as well. So the Southern District, I'm going to say there's probably somewhere around 15 or so Chapter 7 trustees.
That's not a lot.
Right.
I'm saying, how we get in on this inner wheel?
For
this
real?
is fantastic.
Yeah,
I love
there's
this idea.
No vacancies right now.
You are not on the list, Marinko. Relax.
There are no vacancies right now. The vacancies only happen typically when somebody
dies.
Well, yeah, but there's an incentive not to die. Not too long ago, we had a trustee who got caught stealing.
No.
And so
I was actually going to say got disbarred. That was going to be my guess.
I think she might have been disbarred later as well, but no, she got caught,
disbarred.
and I think she did some time in Club Fed.
Oh, that's nice.
But stealing from but not from the bankruptcy. No. Stealing what?
Stealing money from her trust account.
Oh, just generally.
But all of the trust money was related to administration of
Got it. Oh, I did not hear about this.
From what I recall.
From what's been published.
Allegedly.
My best recollection.
My best recollection from the Miami Herald.
My best recollection. She's probably out now.
Oh, already?
Well, it's been a long time.
It's just a financial offense. No
big misunderstanding.
Other district. I mean,
it was an accounting
it's funny that you said that. It's funny that you said that because one time I was representing a mortgagee in a foreclosure here, but a debtor filed in the Middle District of Florida, and there was no reason for them to file. They filed a Chapter 7. It was basically, I was going after this guy hard to recover attorney's fees from my client because my client was like just about ready to foreclose and get this property back, and they filed this bad faith Chapter 7 in the Middle District, and I was going after him as hard as I could, and the judge, I'm not going to say which judge it was, but his comment was, we have a lot of fraud up here in the Middle District. And that was his justification for not awarding the attorney's fees. I was seeking to get the attorney on the hook too, because the attorney was really at fault. The party didn't know anything. It was the attorney who was filing this bankruptcy in bad faith. So differences between the Middle District and the Southern District. But,
wait, are we thinking there's more fraud in the Middle District?
Yeah, I'm not saying he was accurate. Yeah, I'm not saying he was accurate.
Miami is really where the fraud is at.
Yeah. I'm not saying he was accurate. I'm just saying that was his justification for not awarding attorney's fees because there's a lot of fraud.
I'm like, you ain't seen nothing yet, my friend. I don't know what you're thinking happens in Orlando.
I think is the point. His perception was amusing. No,
may I have a sip from my bejeweled cup?
Oh, yes, our bejeweled, very shiny, tacky ass glasses. Of course, it is all yours.
Much better. Thank you.
We swear there's water in there. Schwitalla is very healthy.
Yeah, it's
We
water.
won't even talk about the bike ride. We won't even talk about the bike ride, Schwitalla.
Which
His
one?
no-drop bike ride. Schwitalla is like a professional
Oh.
bicyclist.
No,
And he
I
hosts
remember.
cyclist. That shows how much I know about this. And he has a very infamous no-drop. What is it? Bike.
Well, it's not.
No, it's a lie.
We're not doing it anymore. But
Oh, thank
at one
God.
point, it was allegedly.
I almost died on this.
It was
thing.
allegedly the no drop bicycle ride, and
It's a no-drop bicycle ride. Meaning
Leslie
you
showed up
won't
on
get
her
behind.
bicycle from sixth
I
grade.
didn't have a bicycle.
I was like, I'm so surprised you
I
own
don't have a bicycle.
No, she shows up on this bike.
Okay.
It's like
Someone brought me a bike.
Oh, God.
Okay, I have not ridden a bike
God.
since I was probably 8.
That was
all right,
obvious.
that was very
from
obvious.
the get go.
And we are.
I gotta
in
hand it to
Grove,
you. You know,
And I almost died. And let
No,
me be
it's
very
true.
clear, Schwitalla left me behind. Okay,
think how surprised that car was when you ran into the passenger side door. I mean,
that was his fault.
now that I reflect back on it,
Just, I literally just bam into a car because I couldn't brake.
now that I reflect back on it, and
My
and I
day.
give it thought, I'm like,
I used
that
to
was a really
brake
brave thing for you to
When we were
do.
kids,
Yeah.
like you would go backwards on the pedal.
Right.
Well, bikes aren't made like that anymore.
No,
There's
they-
like
Oh.
Yeah. When you go backwards, the pedals just go backwards, and the bike keeps going forward.
I can't stop. Bam into this car's like passenger door.
Man.
Oh, that was.
And I'm like, oh my god, I'm like gonna owe this guy money
I was
for
about to say,
slamming into his
dented,
car.
yeah.
This poor person is like, this bitch is gonna sue me. You know, we had a misunderstanding.
Officer, he hit me.
Yeah. He pulled right out in front of me. I forget who it was that I sent back to help you get back to the parking lot. Oh, Blas. I think so. So Blas decided he was gonna take one
I
for
later
the team
got babysat.
and help
Wait,
you.
so no drop? Does that mean?
That means as you ride slow enough so the slowest person
No,
doesn't
but he
fall off
never-
the back of the pack.
Oh,
Perceived that there would be a Leslie
No.
in this.
You were
act.
Well,
slow.
Leslie, yes, but Leslie
too
at
slow.
that level of performance, no.
I mean, honestly,
It was not something that was
It was
foreseeable.
like, I'll try anything once, but guys, I don't even know if I can ride a bike. I mean, I was honest.
No, listen.
when I was invited on this.
The bravery, the level of bravery
And
now
it
as I
also
look
started
back.
raining in my defense.
Oh, the road was
It
slick,
was
sure.
drizzling. It was drizzling.
Man, you remember the details. This is like seared into your mind.
Traumatized from it in
She
my
is
life.
traumatized.
I couldn't like move for like a day after this bike
You
ride. I
seem
was
traumatizable to
so
me.
much pain. I'm like, my back hurts, my leg hurts. This is terrible. I'm never doing this
My
again.
neck,
Like,
My ego's destroyed.
no, but what
the worst part? Her
What I
ego.
didn't know, okay, because I don't know anything about sports, obviously, and I certainly don't know anything about cycling. But I've been told by several people after that happen
Uh-huh.
to know you in this context, that if you would have started bicycling, I guess, when you were younger, you would have absolutely been a professional paid to do this. You started this a little later in life.
Yeah.
Because he's that good.
You're very young, but you're no spring chicken, right?
Right.
So the fact that you started
like
now
that.
and you're so fucking good is mind blowing to certain people. And I can't even remember who this was. These aren't like people that I thought knew
Probably
you.
Oscar.
And no, maybe, but I mean, I've mentioned, when somebody asks me for a bankruptcy lawyer or something, another lawyer, and I go, oh, Schwitalla, and they go, oh my God, have you seen that guy ride a bike? And I'm like, the fuck do you know he rides a bike? I thought that was just something you advertise amongst
Right.
us friends here, okay? And they're like,
Amongst
no,
us
man.
friends.
And I don't remember who it was that was like, you don't understand the level of athleticism that you have as someone that started later on is something people are very impressed with.
Well,
And if you would have done it younger, you definitely wouldn't be a bankruptcy lawyer. That's what you would have done professionally and for money. And I was like, wow, I never would have.
I don't know if I would have made it to that level. I might have, but I certainly think if I would have discovered cycling when I was in my teens, I probably never would have become a lawyer. I probably would have. Yeah, I
Interesting.
probably would have ended up doing something in that vein. Not necessarily being a pro, but maybe owning a bicycle shop or doing something. But I enjoy it a lot, and I'm pretty good at it, and have a lot of fun.
Got it. Well, I greatly enjoyed the breakfast after the bike ride. I'm down for the breakfast after the bike ride in the Grove anytime.
Right. Yeah. Chocolate croissant.
Getting back on topic.
Right. So where are we?
I don't even know what
consumer,
we're talking
commercial.
about. We
Back to my cushy job as a trustee.
No.
That
So
I'm
we talked
running
about
for.
trustees. We explained liquidation. We need to talk about reorganization.
Okay.
Because we didn't get to that one. So what does
right.
that mean?
So basically, with reorganization, the trustee can't touch anything. They can't take away your non-exempt assets. They can't sue your mom who you repaid, or your brother, or your brother,
Repaid.
your brother that you. Well, no, even if it's a legitimate repayment of a legitimate debt within a year of bankruptcy, they can go after mom to get the money back if it wasn't exempt money. But the trustee's limited. Basically, the Chapter 13 trustee, in the case of an individual who's reorganizing, you propose a plan, and the trustee can say thumbs up to the plan or thumbs down to the plan. And if the trustee says thumbs down to the plan, you can either go to the judge and say, I think my plan is good enough, even though the trustee doesn't like it, judge, you should approve it. Or you can kind of sweeten the pot and say, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit more. I'm going to give more money to the creditors in the plan. So in Chapter 13, it's a much safer venue for people that might have non-exempt assets, that might have...
don't want their mom sued.
They don't want their mom or their brother sued. Call them crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
Can individual creditors say, Can they influence at all? Or it's just the trustee?
No, they have a right to be heard. They have a right to be heard.
But do they?
I mean,
But
usually it's an ex-spouse, a former business partner,
Sure.
somebody that wants to
that
drink
knows
your
you're full
blood.
of shit and I'm coming after you.
Right.
Someone who's angry. There's an
The-
emotional
Someone that's
aspect.
Your
angry.
credit card company.
MasterCard is not going to come through.
No, MasterCard is not. Care Credit is not.
I have Care Credit.
Lechuga is not. Not none of those.
What is lechuga?
It's like a
Lechuga?
Is it like an online? One of the many online lenders.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, write that down. I want to
Lechuga.com.
what Lechuga's doing.
Lechuga.
.com.
Puto com.
Lechuga.com.
That's excellent.
Lettuce.com. It's just weird.
I mean, Care Credit's interesting. As soon as you said that, I thought, oh man, I guess a whole lot of plastic surgery is a way to
Dental work.
get rid of some
Dental
money.
work, plastic surgery.
You know, and I guess if you did that,
Usually
with
not
veterinary
good.
bills.
Usually not good plastic surgery.
No.
Usually like Kmart style plastic
not
surgery.
true.
Yeah, no, for real.
that's not true. How do you know?
I have a Care Credit card. I've had some work done.
Wait, is that an actual credit card?
Well, but you didn't use it for cosmetic surgery. You did? All right. Well, in your case, not Kmart.
But then you didn't go file bankruptcy the next day.
No, I did
Exact
not.
Fifth
I paid
Avenue.
my
This
debt.
shit back.
I did.
Right.
I have a Care Credit card. I have multiple Care Credit cards, actually. We use them for dental work. We use them for plastic surgery. We use them for vets. Veterinarians take Care Credit, and vet care is very expensive, for the record, Leslie.
People that make a lot of money can afford to pay 28, 30%
My
interest on
dog's
their credit
MRI
cards.
costs over $3,000. Okay,
Oh,
it's
no.
ridiculous.
Oh, no.
But yes,
Not as
they-
ridiculous as the interest rates.
Yeah, no, but Care Credit's 0% for like 24 months.
Oh, for you, because you have good credit.
Yeah,
Not
so
for my
it's-
clients.
And then
for
what,
my
it
clients, it's like
snowballs
28,
into, like,
30%.
Yeah, it snowballs to insanity. But the whole idea, I mean, the reason I like the Care Credit card so much specifically is because it covers some stuff that, like, you will forget the cosmetic surgery, but like the dental stuff, the vet bills,
Yeah.
like they're things you have to do, and they're 0% for like 24 months, 36 months in some cases.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really.
They're
nice.
just hoping you
And
don't
so
pay
you
it. That's it. You're
they're
never gonna
hoping
pay
you
it
don't
off,
pay it, but
and
if
then
you're
he
a
gets to
responsible
nail
consumer.
you.
You put yourself on a 24-month plan,
yeah.
and it's fantastic.
I
you
had
know,
no
like
idea there was 0% for
Oh
a while.
yeah, it's 0% for sometimes it's 12 months, sometimes 24, sometimes 36. It just depends
Well,
on
my
what you're
clients
getting
don't
done.
show up with 0% credit cards. You know, they miss that deadline, and that that $400
It's-
purchase ends up to be a $1,600 purchase.
No, that's absolutely right. Because if
Yeah.
you don't pay it off by the 24 months, then it becomes the usual like 25% or
Right.
whatever it is.
Retroactively.
Oh yeah, it's
They-
been
they-
throwing this whole.
They add up
Yeah.
that, and they're sitting there
Hey,
going,
this
"Man, I
is
hope they don't pay. I hope they
Oh
don't
no,
pay."
here we're
No,
not
I mean,
in
if you're a
business.
responsible card holder, like this is a really great card. But yes, of course, like anything else, you know.
Well, I assume if you go get the titties, you can't go file bankruptcy 6 months later.
It
but
happens.
I mean,
And can the Chapter 7 trustee go, this is bullshit?
how are people's
Chapter 7
titties
trustee.
any different than your gold faucet in your fucking?
Well, that's exactly my point. I am comparing you know, your $10,000
The nice faucet is also
Chapter 7 trustee
an
can't go get
investment.
your titties.
Right, they
Go
can't.
get my gold faucet.
So in this,
An awful Chapter 7
Right.
trustee.
What's it called?
oh yeah,
A
You'd be like-
revagination.
you'd be like,
I
oh,
think
no.
they call the vagina
Rejuvenation.
Rejuvenation.
I'm gonna get my gold faucet.
There's so much
man.
plastic surgery.
So
you
in
can
the
do.
case that you just described, 6 months post surgery, the creditor could potentially
Like
file.
she did this shit on purpose.
Right. So the
I want. No, I don't
if
want
I'm
the
going
titties.
down, I'm
Right.
going down with nice
want
tits.
Right.
an
That's all I gotta say
allocation
about
of
it.
what the titties
That's all I gotta
cost.
say about it.
got you. So
See?
like for a
Imputed. I wanted imputed.
for a care credit, those big creditors, it's a numbers game. You know, they're gonna accept the losses. Now, in the example that you gave, 6 months post surgery, you're gonna try to discharge some care credit that you just got for elective cosmetic surgery. Actually, the creditor could come into court and file an action to determine the debt to be non-dischargeable, saying at the time that you made the charge, you had no intent to repay.
Yeah.
Certain bankruptcy courts around the country are more receptive to that type of adversary proceeding, that type of lawsuit, and other districts are not. Like, so in the Southern District of Florida, the judges aren't really too receptive. They don't like that
Really?
lawsuit. But like the Western District of Missouri, I mean, you know, you make a cash advance like 9 or 10 months prior to filing bankruptcy, and those judges are gonna listen to a creditor who is trying to say that this
Really?
potentially should be non-dischargeable. So there's variation in practice
are
around the
judges
country.
Down here, just like totally jaded at this point.
No, not
Like,
at all. I don't really know.
Standard operating. You know,
For them, it's
South
like
Florida.
it's not a gold faucet.
No,
you
no,
know?
No, that's not it. I just think that, you know, it's just not. They're not very
will tell you.
receptive to that. I don't know the reasons why, but you know, and this is. I'm not trying to like play up to the judges or anything, but we
Brown
have
noser.
no,
No.
legitimate. We have, as a bankruptcy bar, we have fantastic judges to
That's
practice
nice.
in front
That's
of.
really nice.
It doesn't matter whether you represent a debtor or a creditor, whether you're on the trustee side or the debtor side, or what role you're is. All these judges down here, you're going to get a fair shake. You're going to get a great listening to. So
That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, they.
That's a really nice
What
thing.
other attorney ever
No, I'm
says
sitting
that
here
about
thinking
in
like,
any
no,
practice
no
area?
other attorney says that.
No.
So that's nice to hear.
That is
No,
very nice.
it's yeah, and you don't. If you ever have another bankruptcy attorney on, ask them the same question, and I bet you'll get the same answer.
That's really nice to hear.
Well, I mean, it's not an equivalent to this, but I think the reason why all of this is so interesting to me, I kind of play in that asset restructuring space, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Whether, asset protection is not a good word these days, wealth preservation kind of space. So
Right.
we track bankruptcy case law. Every year we get like a book, and this is all the case law that has come out and how it may affect any one of your clients. But not only that, there's that kind of trustee receivership thing that's naturally in estate in probate.
Sure.
Where you have a trustee or you have a personal representative, and sometimes you don't have anybody that can serve. And the lawyers themselves will serve as curator or will serve as, which is essentially, I need to go after all of these assets. I need to know who's trying to fuck the estate. I need to know where money was stolen from.
Right.
And I'm coming at you, right? And I mean, we're paid out of the estate. So I don't mean to criticize, Chapter 7 trustee that hires himself and his law firm
Right.
to be lawyer, because I absolutely do the same fucking thing. Thank you very much. So I totally get it, which it's all a very forensic kind of analysis
Sure.
of where's the money? Where did it go if it went anywhere? And how the fuck do I get
Right.
it back? Because I
Right.
have a fiduciary duty to these people, to these
Yep.
beneficiaries, right?
You have estates, and we have estates.
Exactly. So I track this very much. So we haven't talked about the famous people
Oh,
that have filed.
that's true
bankruptcy.
because
They're
we
better for you.
self-describe as a podcast that talks about the current event stuff of each area of law, and I
Okay.
think there's a lot of current event people we could talk about. There's some past ones too that I think are
Well, the
pretty
past ones,
interesting.
I was just trying to think who the current ones are, and I can't really remember.
I mean, dare I mention our former president?
Well, I don't think he filed. I think some of his,
okay,
I
okay.
think some of his businesses did.
Okay,
and
all
if you
right.
go online, you'll find some of these compilations, and some of them correctly distinguish between entities filing bankruptcy
Sure.
and individuals.
And some of them don't, because I did some Googling before you came on.
Right, some of
Yeah.
them don't,
Yeah,
and
some of
I'm
them
sure
don't.
there's no agenda there.
But
to throw somebody
I
under
noticed some
the bus.
trends. I noticed some trends.
Presidents.
I noticed some presidents.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of musicians.
Wait, what
Yes.
other presidents are we?
Lincoln,
Interesting.
Grant, U.S. Grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But the musicians I thought were interesting, and also athletes.
Yep.
And I remember at some point sitting down with someone, God, I don't remember who it was, talking about, it was like a credit repair company or something that I had spoken to years ago. My parents spoke to, I think, years ago. And the guy was talking about how it's very typical for athletes in particular. Like, they get recruited so young. A lot of them don't know, and they have these amazing skills, and suddenly here's a lot of money, and a lot of them go and blow it because they don't get the right amount of financial planning.
And then they
they're
find
just not
coke and
aware.
whores.
Right.
Miami Beach.
Were you
It's like
talking to my buddy
over-
Chris Colston?
I don't know.
So
I don't
my
know.
buddy Chris Colston, that
I know.
he's with Second Chance Credit. He'd be a great interview for you guys.
Sure.
But he chose as a niche or a niche to go after the professional athlete market, and he has lots of relationships with lots
Miami
of
Dolphins in particular.
all
I bet
across,
it was him.
all
'cause
across
I remember the story.
all across the NFL.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, these young men
Yeah.
are very, very young.
Yeah.
And they've been, in many cases, graduated through the years with maybe not getting as much education as they otherwise would
Sure.
have
Sure.
had they not been such prized assets on the football field.
Sure.
And so, they end up with multi-million dollar contracts, and
And they're rich.
they've
overnight.
never had a checking
Sure.
account.
They're rich overnight. They're rich overnight.
And it's sad because some of them end up like with nothing,
Yeah.
NFL stands for not for long.
Not for long.
And
I-
sometimes it's just
Terrible.
because their skills don't keep up with the competition. Sometimes they get injured, but that first $12 million or $15 million or 10 or however whatever size contract, that might be the only one they ever get. And
if they've blown it all on a good time,
oof,
or bad advisors, because a lot of them end up in tax
what I was
problems,
gonna
which
say.
is kind of unfathomable to the rest of us.
I think most of it is tax. So interestingly, I was reading about this when I was doing my research before Jimmy came on, and I found that most of the celebrity stories that I read, and maybe this is just what people report on, but most of them seem to be tax issues. Almost
Yeah.
all of them were tax issues that I was reading.
Yeah, so
I
the-
actually even made a
I
list.
mean, even
on some of them.
Shakira has
Yeah.
all this bullshit going on in Spain with tax issues.
and some of those are born out of mismanagement, but
Yeah.
also some of them were misled. So like Wesley Snipes was one of the most famous. Poor guy. I think he ended up doing time.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Because he got some guy in his ear who was telling him all of this. Oh, the tax code is a voluntary tax code. That means you only have to pay taxes if you want to, right?
The rest of us are just so charitable.
Right? Yeah. The rest of the world just wants to pay their taxes, but since you don't want to, you don't have to, Wesley Snipes.
And you should go on just public television and say those things that you refuse to pay taxes. Yes.
And then by the
man.
time somebody
Something I tell people all the time, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions is like, if you get a gift in excess of a certain amount of money, and that number changes every year, it is never the person that receives the fucking gift that owes the gift tax, people. I know
Right.
that sounds very counterintuitive, because I'm giving you something. I'm the asshole that needs to at least report and
Right.
potentially pay for that gift, not the receiver.
Yeah, a gift is not
imagine
income to the
you
recipient.
get $15 million as a NFL, or I win the lotto or whatever, and you're like Oprah, right? A house for you and a whatever for you.
Right.
And everybody gets a house. My whole fucking family of 22 cousins.
None
all
of
get a
those
house.
cousins have to pay
And
the
your
tax.
dumbass is on the radar, right?
Right.
If you're in the NFL or you just won the lotto or whatever the fuck, IRS is not interested in poor people. They're just not. It's not worth it to them,
Well,
right? So this is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah,
Happens all
I
the time.
mentioned musicians. I mean, the list was crazy. I didn't
Yeah.
even write all of them down, but 50 Cent, Tony Braxton, MC Hammer, Dionne Warwick, Cyndi Lauper. I mean, the list is huge.
Yeah, it goes on.
Yeah,
on
and
on.
most of them were tax issues that I was reading. Most of them
Yeah.
were tax
Well,
issues.
we say there's a saying in asset protection, wealth preservation worlds. That your worst creditors, there's three: bankruptcy trustee, your potential ex-spouse, and the IRS. These are your super creditors, right? These people have fucking power and motivation to come after you that other creditors dream about
Right.
in their
and former business partners.
and former business partners certainly
ex-business
know
partners.
a lot So
They know a lot.
They know a lot.
They've been to your house.
They do. They
They've
know
seen-
about that gold faucet.
They've seen
And
that
your
stuff.
titties.
And your titties. They know about your titties.
They know about your titties.
They've touched those titties.
Oh Jesus! I didn't go.
Maybe.
Let it be known, I did not go there for once. I'm not the one that went there. Okay.
Just this one time.
Just this one time.
Right.
12 episodes.
I feel honored.
Was it me?
Oh,
Okay.
man.
Was
Was it
on my
me?
podcast.
Sinbad also had a tax issue. He filed for bankruptcy also.
Right.
A comedian.
But actually,
Burt
I remember
Reynolds.
Burt
when
Reynolds. I
when
saw
we were
Burt
very
Reynolds.
young, we're still very young for the record. You too, Schwitalla. You're
Thanks.
a spring chicken. But when we were very young, and what
Jimmy's
was
in probably better shape than
oh
either
he
one
is
of
no,
us.
100%. Jimmy,
I could use a little care credit.
if we do one of
That
those
card I could lend you.
How much time do I have? 3 years?
24 months.
you know one of those age tests where like you do all these things and it tells you like your whatever the fuck age, like Jimmy's gonna like rank younger than I am for sure. But, what was that 3 women pop group? Waterfalls, some
Oh,
bullshit.
TLC.
Okay,
TLC.
these women after, and this is when we were like in high school, had a massive
I
like
could sing the entire
world-
rap portion of that song for
You're
the record.
kidding me right
No,
now.
I could, but I'm not
Okay,
going to.
that's in the bloopers. We're gonna do that after. But after like their biggest like tour, and I've always heard that celebrities, singers and whatever, make a lot of their money not from record sales, but from actually the tours,
Touring,
right?
yeah.
That's where they make the gazillion.
So actually, Toni Braxton, the reason she's on the list is because she canceled a big tour and she had self-financed it. And
Oh,
that's
shit.
where most of her debt came from for her bankruptcy, because I read that in the article. So.
And so I could be totally wrong, but I recall back in the day that was like a big thing because they had just finished their whatever tour, and they had made supposedly all of this money, but all of their advisors fucked them, stole money. It was totally mismanaged, and within very short order, everybody is filing bankruptcy because of the mismanagement of all the money that was made on
Sure.
that tour. And one of them spoke out about it, and that's the only reason on probably MTV or some shit when I was 15. I don't remember. But I remember thinking, how is that possible, right? Like, this is just wild to me that these people don't have good lawyers, good accountants, good financial advisors, good everything, as I say on my
But you
newsletter
have to-
weekly.
Yeah.
You have to realize who they are as people. Not everybody comes from the kind of background where they're highly educated
Yeah.
or they know the importance of these things, and you're suddenly handed millions of dollars, and it's like, oh fuck, you
There's
know.
definitely it's the exception, not the rule, that you
Yeah.
know somebody comes into major league sports and has somebody who's really watching their back, and then they live frugally. But there's some out there. I
Yeah.
forget, there was a Phillies first baseman. I forget who he was. This is probably going back 10 or 15 years, but his mom put him on a salary. It's like,
I love that.
Yeah, he made sure that mom got all the
love that.
money, and she gave him basically an allowance, you know, and he didn't go out and buy the
We have to limit the
3
Coke and
Rolls
whores
Royces.
here, guys.
The what?
The Coke and whores. We have to limit.
Yes.
Mom was like,
Mom was like zero.
not
Yeah, like
doing this.
let me see how much
every
for the
day.
Coke. Oh, 0 for the Coke.
0 for Coke.
Whores, mom? No, 0 for whores too.
No, Jimmy.
That's
no,
what
that's
she-
when we fire mom, Jimmy.
No.
You can't be that strict.
Listen,
No,
this
you gotta
guy was
have a
smart.
limit.
This guy was
I
smart. He
mean-
knew what was good for him, and he played by the rules.
It's
So
true.
for South Florida, old South Florida football fans like me, one of the Miami Dolphins filed a bankruptcy, and this is going back probably 15 or 20 years. Mercury Morris.
That's before our time, Jim.
Yeah,
No,
you
it's
don't
not
even know who
before
I'm
my
talking
We don't
time.
know. We
Oh,
have
you
no
don't?
idea.
Speak for yourself.
That's before our time. You're younger than I am.
I am actually not into sports at all, but my father was a Miami Dolphin obsessed.
Of course.
Interesting.
Not a fair weather fan, a diehard
Yeah.
with his season tickets until the day he died. And
Nice.
I grew up in a household obsessed with the Miami Dolphins.
I
with
would
zero
not-
appreciation for any of this, but
Right?
so I
Oh,
can
you heard
talk
the name
talk.
Mercury Morris?
I could talk the talk as of like 10 years ago. Anything that happened in the last 10 years, I have no concept because I'm not interested at all. But before that, I grew up in a with Shula all over my living room and Marino all over the place, and I could talk to you about the perfect season in the 70s, and we could have all.
Well,
kinds
jump
of
back on the
conversations.
bandwagon. We got a good team this year.
I don't know. I lost touch once like J-Lo owned part of the team. I was like, I'm done.
I don't even know if they still do that, but
No, they think they do, but
no, we got a
anyways.
great quarterback. We got fantastic
Who is this person?
Tua.
Does he? Tua, get good advisors so you don't have to file
Oh
bankruptcy.
no, listen, he
His name is
is
Tua.
Tua is his first name. Tonga Vailoa is his last name, and
Where's this guy from?
he's from
Interesting name.
either Hawaii or
I was gonna say it sounds like
Oh, that is
It sounds
So
Hawaiian.
random.
He is.
Okay.
He comes from a fantastic family. They're
Hawaiian
very
or Samoan
tight,
or something
and
like
this
that.
is not a guy who is gonna.
No coke and horse for you too.
No, he's set
No,
up.
no.
No, he's set up. He has a foundation. He's doing good works with his money. So this is a good person.
Footballer.
It happens.
Footballer.
You sound like you're from Britain talking about a soccer player.
That's exactly what I
Footballer.
thought. I don't know anything about American football, for the record.
What?
I don't. I really don't.
She's into
Too
soccer.
bad. Where'd you go to undergrad?
University of Florida.
They have a football team.
I know. It was right across from the fucking engineering building. And I was like, can they fucking pipe down? We're studying.
You and your
Studying
slippers.
hard, guys. Yes, me and my pajamas and my slippers.
You were
Like,
dead. Even back in the day.
across the street. Like,
Oh my gosh.
no, I was at University of Florida because Columbia did not take me. So this is quite a traumatizing moment in my life.
Well,
anyway, we're not going there.
they didn't have a
That is a
football
whole
team.
other day. Okay, yeah.
I was about to say.
How about you? What's your undergrad?
Yeah, I went to NYU, so no football. We had a fencing team.
Didn't you tell me the
Fancy.
Bobcats or something?
Fancy.
The Bobcats was our mascot, but there's no football team as far as I know.
Oh, yeah.
Fencing was like the thing. Yeah.
If there were a football team
football.
and their mascot was Bobcats, they'd
Come
get
on.
laughed off the.
Bobcats.
And then I
Gridiron.
did a whole like
well,
year.
Listen, a Bobcats is an improvement. The mascot used to be the Fighting Violets, like the flower. They were violet. They were purple.
What?
Oh, yeah, because
Fighting
the
violets. Now, purple is a good is a good color,
Just abandon that.
but I don't know
So
about.
at some point they changed it to the Bobcats. Yeah, yeah. But interestingly enough, I'm a triple Bobcat. So going all the way back, I went to
Lourdes?
my middle school. My middle school was Conchita Finosa, which was the Bobcats.
Espinosa.
Espinosa. And then I went to
Lourdes,
Lourdes, and I was a
Bobcats.
Bobcat again. And then I went to NYU, where I continued to be a Bobcat. So I was a Bobcat almost my whole life.
Well, I
Until
think
law school.
you must
at which
still be
point
a Bobcat.
It changed when I went to law school.
But the funny part is, so obviously UF, it's a big deal, right? The fucking football team that greatly annoyed me every time I was trying to study. But I come down to FIU, and I actually spent 2 semesters at FIU as a transfer student here in Miami. That's how I ended up later in Miami. And the first football game I ever went to was a very sad FIU football game that I was like,
Golden Panther.
I don't understand.
The Golden Panthers.
Like this is not all
What
the
year was
noise
this?
I
Did they
heard.
throw rats on the ice?
Ice? Huh? No.
She shifted on you.
God.
She
It
started
was a
talking
joke.
hockey.
We're talking about hockey.
I
Go
was
on.
like, I was at the wrong game. I was like, there was no ice. There was no ice.
That was a joke that just went like
She's like,
right over her head.
but she was afraid for a moment because, like, she was leaving open the possibility that there really is ice involved in football.
I was like,
Because that's the level of her
went to one
understanding.
game and it was in the summer or something. I don't know. Like there was
Her
no
face was like, what?
What?
Anyways, I'm sorry.
And I remember really thinking at that point,
Oh my God.
man, I should have went to a football game at University of Florida because
Gone to football.
yes.
Sorry, that was my
Professor.
dad. My dad. My dad did
No,
that.
my dad did the same shit to me. And the funny thing is, my dad was not born in this country, and he used to criticize my English and go, "Who's the fucking American here?" Is what he used to tell me as he corrected my fucking grammar.
Because he probably was
Because
a
he
product.
learned it.
He was the
man.
product of a good education
Yes,
system.
and he learned,
went to-
very strict rules.
not so much.
In his English-speaking school in Buenos Aires. So yes, he was like always correcting me and my sister for our bad grammar and our bad
for
English.
him.
And I used to be like, "Okay, Dad." Like,
He and my dad are
it
probably
always-
getting along famously right now.
Yes, well, he's. So I should have seen a football game at UF because when I came down here and saw my first football game, I'm like, this ain't the kind of party that I was listening to from literally a block away.
Right.
Like, this
It's
is
like
bullshit.
7 people here.
Like this is bullshit. I didn't drink in college.
I mean,
and
football is huge at UF.
It
How did
is-
you
no.
never go to a football game? I'm not even into football, and I would have gone to a game.
well,
just
because you're all about like cruise director. You're all about like this is where the party's at.
Absolutely.
I'm going to where the
100%.
party's at.
If there's a giant
I
stadium with
wasn't
people
about the party
yelling,
yet.
you need to check it out before you
I was
graduate.
like,
okay, like
man,
one time.
I don't.
One
This is
time.
not my jam. I should have done many things. in
Engineering.
college.
Wow.
Yeah, me, lo chino, y lo indio. We didn't really go to the football game. What to tell
Oh,
you?
man. All right,
Anyway,
coming back to bankruptcy.
tell us about Alina's $500,000 of student debt she has from NYU.
That is exactly what I
Boston.
wanted to talk about. I want to talk
Wow.
about student debt.
Because
Yeah.
she and Manny. Manny, one of the partners in my law firm, undergrad law school and all this bullshit and that guy's gonna die with student debt. Like, that shit's never getting paid back. But maybe there are other options for Manny. He's not exactly high income.
Yeah, it's tough. So
For the record,
allegedly,
I had great scholarships. But go on, please.
yeah. So student loans, there's certain types of debts that are non-dischargeable. You can't get rid of them in bankruptcy. And student loans are one of those. And they're automatically non-dischargeable, which means your student loan lender doesn't need to come into court and say, hey, you can't get rid of this, judge. Don't let them get rid of it. It's automatically non-dischargeable. So if a student files a bankruptcy and they want to get rid of their student loans, they have to file a lawsuit within the bankruptcy. It's called an adversary proceeding.
Oh, they themselves.
The student borrower has to file a lawsuit, and they have to allege and they have to prove undue hardship, that it would be an undue hardship for them to repay. That's a pretty vague description. So here in the Southern District of Florida, we're part of the 11th Circuit, which includes Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. And so the 11th Circuit follows this case called Brunner. And it's one of those bad facts make bad law cases.
Yes.
So Brunner was this wonderful lady who graduated from medical school, put everything on the student loans, and this was back in the day. And she immediately, 6 months later, went to discharge these student loans.
Because that's when you would do it before you start making money. Hello.
Right.
Obviously, Schwitalla, we got to be strategic about
So
this.
anyway, the Brunner case basically says if you want to get rid of your student loans, you have to prove three things. Number one, you don't have the present ability to pay the student loans while still maintaining a minimal standard of living for yourself and your dependents.
That seems like a reasonable one. Go
Number
on.
two, that inability to repay is going to persist for a majority of the repayment period.
But that's like 30 years.
A majority of the repayment period would be like 15 of a 30-year, or if you had
That's really
if you had
fucking
10-year loans, you'd have to prove that for at least 5 years. If you were trying to get rid of them right at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And then the third thing is...
So you have like a physical incapacity or something that doesn't allow you to do the job that you went to school for, and therefore that's going to persist?
Well, maybe. So, hold on a second. So the third thing is that you've made a good faith effort to repay.
Well,
Okay.
fuck that. I mean...
Well, some people... Well... A lot of people struggle with these student loan debts a long time, and then they're not filing a bankruptcy because of student loans, because the word on the street is you can't get rid of student loans. They end up in bankruptcy typically for a different reason. Credit cards, foreclosure.
Care credit.
Somebody died, somebody got divorced, somebody lost a job. There's a reason why they filed a bankruptcy. So the catch-22 is if you really do have an undue hardship, you can't pay the lawyer to do the adversary proceeding because this is not a cheap process.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Historically...
Bullshit. They're
Read my
allowed to
mind.
use that against you?
No, listen to me.
No. He's saying on a practical level.
I thought that was like in the Brunner case. Like,
No.
I'm like,
No.
No. That's
bullshit
so.
is
As
that?
he's saying this
I'm
is what I was
outraged.
thinking.
He was like
No, but
legitimately
as-
outraged.
Yeah.
No, okay. So
No.
the idea
Like,
is
who's got the
if you
cash?
can afford to pay me to litigate in federal court against the
$40,000.
federal government,
Yeah.
then you don't have an undue hardship,
Right.
right? And if you do have an undue hardship, you can't afford to pay me. It's
Exactly.
expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So historically, when you file an adversary proceeding, the Department of Justice, who is involved with the trustees, U.S. trustees, and the Department of Education, the Department of Education is typically the defendant. And so they come in, they're basically an arm of the federal government,
Sure.
and they're like, no, we're not going to agree that this is an undue hardship. And they fought you tooth and nail the whole way. Well, I will hand something to the Biden administration. They did something that was within their power, and it is aimed at actually getting relief to student loan borrowers who are in bankruptcy who need it. And what they've done is, this was about a year ago, and in the fall of 22, they passed new guidance, and they issued this guidance to the Department of Education and the Department of Justice, and it's like this 18 pages telling those departments how to interpret the Brunner test.
Okay.
Okay? So what is a good faith effort to repay?
Okay.
What constitutes an inability to pay the student loans while still maintaining a minimal standard of living? And the basic thrust of this guidance is to really kind of like
Back off.
Back off. Yeah, don't oppose them so aggressively.
Right.
So, I just filed my first one recently, and I'm interested to see what their response is going to be. This particular set of facts is the client actually has a decent income, but he lives at home. He's got children that he pays child support on. He pays alimony, and when you look at this guy's income and expense, there's no coke and horse.
Yeah.
This guy
Got
is
enough money for that.
no.
That's expensive.
But nobody. This guy has really good income, and that's where I'm not sure if we're going to be able to discharge the student loans. But this particular guy has really good income. But when you look at his actual money coming in and his actual money going out, there's really nothing that you can point at in his expenses and criticize him.
Right.
I mean, he's paying
like a
out the
normal guy,
nose
normal
for
guy,
alimony and
for
out the
kids,
ears for
right.
child support.
Oh,
and
right,
he's a
right.
good dad, and he's involved
Yeah,
with his
sure.
kids, and he's like literally lives with his parents. This guy is in his probably mid-30s.
Sure.
And he doesn't pay his parents any rent because he can't afford to pay his parents any rent. So although he has a very good, stable job and makes
Sure.
money, he can't pay his
Legit
student
expenses.
loans.
He has legitimate
It's
expenses.
all legit. You
Right.
can't pick out anything on his list of expenses that you could criticize and say,
Okay,
look,
but-
if you just give this up, you'd have some money to pay the student loans.
Sure, and especially because there are court orders for that alimony and that child support.
Yes.
So that's interesting. Because
So
if
for-
there
Absolutely.
weren't court orders for it, and you're just paying for the usual things that
Right.
that kind of already goes to, right? The daycare and the tennis lessons and whatever the
Yeah.
fuck is going for the kids.
Right.
That's not on his kind of income statement.
Yeah.
That's on the other person's income statement. So that's super interesting. But is that situation? He's only 30-something years old. Is that situation, not that the situation itself is not going to persist, it will.
Well, that's-
but his income can.
So
go
I
up.
was about to
Right.
ask in a similar vein
Interesting.
about their ability to pay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prove they don't have the ability to pay eventually, if not today? Or do you even need to show that? So I'm thinking of someone who maybe has like a temporary injury, but we don't know how long it's going to persist, or they have a
Mm-hmm. Right.
medical condition, or, if you have cancer today and you can't repay, but you go into remission next year, like
Right.
is that something they even take into account? That
Yeah.
it's a possibility. I'm curious.
So remember this, the way I presented them, the second prong was that
Right.
the inability to pay is likely to persist for a majority of the repayment
right.
period.
And I guess my question is, how do they analyze that?
Well, first of all, you have to look at the loans and see how long the repayment
Sure.
period is.
But
So
let's say
the
it's
longer the
15 years.
loan, the more difficult it is to prove
Right.
Yeah.
that your inability to pay is going to persist for that period of
Sure.
time.
And you kind of chose that at the beginning of the loan.
But most of the loans for
Which
Yeah.
is interesting. 'Cause people don't know this,
Most
right?
student loans
Right.
are like forever endeavor, like
Well, 'cause
20
you
years
choose
or some shit.
Some of them
Well,
are
because who's gonna
fives, some of
choose
them are
any-
tens, but I think
Yeah.
the great majority are 20s and 30s.
Yeah, like the really the high end ones are like most of the ones I got. Let's just
Yeah,
say
when
that
you
way.
start getting into the six-figure student
yeah,
loans,
yeah.
the terms are much longer.
Yeah.
Interesting. So all of this is, as I say, to be litigated.
Yeah,
To be
but
figured
the
out.
general thrust of this guidance that the Biden administration gave to the Department of Justice and the Department of Education really is to like look for a way to find
Right.
undue hardship.
Unless somebody that got out and they're committing fraud, let's get softer on this. Got it.
So they give examples, right?
Okay.
Oh, I
tell
like
me,
it.
tell me,
So-
tell me.
so for
that's
example-
kind of where I was trying to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the examples is, you ask the typical person on the street, okay, there's a guy who's trying to get rid of his student loans, and one of the things he has to prove is that he's made a good faith effort to repay. Right? You ask the typical guy on the street, what would that include? And the guy would be like, well, I guess,
twice.
okay, fine. Right.
you
So
made a couple payments at some point,
right. Now, the guidance
or you sent $20 when it was like
the
a
guidance
minimum payment.
Yeah.
here's what the guidance boils down to. If the presentation of the debtor is, one time I sat and I thought really hard about how I was going to pay one payment. Believe it or not, the guidance suggests that is a good faith effort to repay.
Wow.
Really?
Yes. So they specifically say that you don't need to have ever made a payment.
Interesting.
Why does the pendulum swing in such extreme
It
ways?
swings. Well, look, I
I about
think
making a payment once,
right.
but then I went to the club.
Right.
Like, what?
Well, we wouldn't include that in his affidavit in support
you
of
wouldn't say that.
motion.
You would be like,
In
he
the
lost
event-
sleep.
In the event that
Tried.
he did make some payments, that sounds like a pretty strong case then.
Yes. So, like, if you have a client who's made payments, it's like, wow, we've hit the first prong.
Yeah.
Because the first prong, the
Yeah.
guidance says we just
Yeah.
have to think about it. In this case, we actually made a payment. So, first prong taken care of. Ding,
Yeah,
check
yeah,
mark.
yeah.
So, yeah. So, anyway, I'm just very excited to see
And
we've
the second
served.
one,
And then second one, I'm
the
gonna go
second one
refinance all my fucking loans so that they're 5 years instead of 30.
the second one was right that they was going to last for the half of the whatever. What was the third one? I
So
forgot. now.
I presented them improperly.
Sorry,
the,
sorry.
The first one should have been you made a good faith effort to repay.
Okay,
The
good,
second
good.
one is you have a present inability to pay while
Okay,
still maintaining
present inability.
while still maintaining a minimal standard of living for yourself and your dependents. Mm-hmm. And then the third one is that
Wait, so does that mean if you're making zero money, you're not going to qualify?
no, if you're making
Then you
zero
definitely-
money, then you definitely don't have the
Well, but
ability.
how are
to-
you
wrong.
maintaining a standard of living for yourself and your dependents?
You live with your
You're-
mom.
you don't have the ability to pay while still maintaining a minimal standard of living.
Oh, okay. While still maintaining.
Right. So, I mean, if you're, let's say, to use an example that you use, somebody's
Yeah.
injured or somebody's sick.
Sure.
They're living at home.
Sure.
With
moving
their
the
parents.
With the
And you know, they're being supported.
girlfriend is paying for it.
Right. So they have no income, but, you know, their needs are being met.
Sure,
you know.
exactly. Yeah.
But they don't have a dollar to spend on a student loan. So,
Okay,
present
understood,
inability to
understood.
make payments.
Okay. All right.
And then the last one is the inability is going to likely to persist for a majority of the repayment period. So.
So before, under this, this was Miss Brenner, you said?
Brunner.
Rhymes Miss
Brunner.
Brunner, MD. So before, Miss Brunner basically had to show she was quadriplegic and could never be a doctor ever. So in order to get them discharged, that was kind of the old standard. Very
Yeah.
strict.
Well, okay. So
like really prove this.
going way back,
It was never.
student loans
Never,
were
nothing
freely
ever.
dischargeable.
Oh,
Before-
There was no difference.
Right, right,
all
Before we were in law school.
Yeah.
And then I forget exactly how the progression worked, but then it worked. Okay, student loans were freely dischargeable, and then they became all right. Student loans are only dischargeable if you've had them for a certain period of time,
Okay.
and then it became okay. Student loans are only freely dischargeable after you've had them for a certain period of time, and only in Chapter 13.
Oh, and
So
the
they said you had to go in and make some payments for a while.
Okay.
And then in an education bill, they slipped one in at the very end, and they made it so that student loans are automatically
Interesting.
non-dischargeable, and then you have to prove undue hardship. And then came the Brunner test. So I don't really recall the facts exactly what they were, but
That's all
But
right.
in a
It's
practical sense, when you're assessing a case and you look at somebody and go, "You got 2 arms, 2 legs, and whatever," we ain't gonna be able to discharge your student loans, right?
Well-
I mean,
Well, now
how
that's
did
different
you?
is what he's saying.
Now it's
Now
different.
it's
But what
different.
was it before? Like, what was your
Oh.
litmus test of like, don't bullshit me. It's never gonna work. We're not gonna try it. Like,
So the one case that I took, I did it pro bono. The client couldn't afford to pay me, and I felt really bad for her. This particular lady, she it took her like 6 or 7 years to get through a 2 or 3 year chiropractic program. She had learning disabilities. She had physical ailments. She had kids who were like super young, like 2 and 3 years old.
Yeah.
Her husband was a mechanic. She could never pass her state boards. Because she just couldn't pass. She wouldn't. In fact, she would not have passed. This is what she told me. She would not have passed chiropractic school. The last class that she had to pass, she was failing, and the professor said, "If you go donate blood, I'll give you a D." And she donated blood, and the professor gave her a D, and she
Wow.
passed. And then, of course, she gets out. And by the way, the chiropractic college, you know, milked her. They
Of course.
they should have told her
Yeah.
after the first year, you know, this is really not. You're not really cut
Sure.
out for this. But instead, they were receiving that good federal student loan money. So they just kept re-enrolling her.
And by the way, there's a whole conversation to be had about the
Yes.
school's responsibilities and all of this. I was saying there's something to be said about the school's level of responsibility here, because thinking back to my experience, I loved going to NYU. Don't get me wrong. I did great there. Wouldn't take it back at all for anything. It was a great experience. But I don't remember a single time where anyone stopped and said, "Hey, like, how much debt did you get into to do this?"
Oh, like
Or,
a financial
"Is
counselor."
Is this worth the long-term benefit you're going to get? Or
Yeah.
even in high school, and I went to Lourdes, like I went to a great school. There was no conversation of, is this in your best interest long term?
Right.
Because my parents were not rich people who could pay $40,000 of tuition. And if it wasn't for the fact that I got a scholarship for
Right.
most of my cost of education, I wouldn't have even gone to NYU. I
Right.
still took out loans to
Right.
finish paying the rest of it and live in Manhattan, which was a very expensive prospect even back then. But nobody ever. Like, I think back now and I'm like, man, if I ever had a kid, which I don't want, but if I ever had a kid, for the record, for the record. But if I ever had a kid, I feel like there's such a conversation as a parent now to be had with my experience and say, like, no, like, this going to an Ivy League just for the sake of going to the Ivy League
Right.
is so not worth it financially, unless there's like an end sight or a goal that requires this kind of path.
Yeah,
Do
no,
you
I
get what I'm
agree.
saying?
No,
Like,
listen, I agree.
it's crazy.
The schools, it's against their better interest, though, right? Their better interest
course.
is to get as many students as possible and,
Yeah.
and enroll them in as many classes as possible. And
Yeah.
so I guess that's what happened in this case. And so
Yeah.
this lady graduates from chiropractic college, and she can't pass the state boards, and she can't pass the national boards.
No, this case is unconscionable.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
and then no chiropractor even wants to hire her to even empty the garbage because they're afraid that she wants it so bad that she's going to maybe say something to a patient or something like that. So
Oh, yeah.
anyway, if there was ever a person who had and she had made payments, she and her husband had struggled and had made payments. So if there was ever a person who had made the payments, made a good faith effort to repay, had the present inability,
Check
and the
box.
good faith, anyway, hit all the boxes. We went to trial. The Department of Education hired excellent counsel to oppose us every step of the way. And one of the things that the 11th Circuit is clear about is that there's no partial discharge, right? So it's an all or nothing. You're either going to win and you're going to wipe out all the debts, or you're going to lose and you're not going to wipe out any of the debts. Well, we had a visiting judge from Missouri, and the visiting judge, I still remember this. We were on the 14th floor of the Claude Pepper Federal Building, and there was some guy out there hanging from a rope outside the window. They were doing work on the building, and they were literally like jackhammering the side of the wall, just like outside of the courtroom. So that's the judge. The judge was like ready to crawl out of his skin by the time we finished this trial. And what did he rule? Partial discharge, because in that case the attorney was actually representing two lenders, and he says to him, your one client, you can call them lucky because they only lent a little bit of money, and your other client, you can call them unlucky because they lent the huge majority of the debt. And this lady,
Sure.
this is going back probably 25 years, she had like over $250,000 of debt, which was probably worth about $500,000 today, right?
yeah. That's a lot.
And the judge ruled that she could discharge the debt owed to the bank that had lent the huge amount of money, but that she couldn't discharge the debt to the bank that only had lent a little bit of money. And that went directly against the partial discharge rule that the 11th Circuit already had in place. So, of course, they appealed, and it got reversed on appeal. So,
shit.
so that satisfied my curiosity about representing people pro bono for student loan discharges. I spent a
man.
lot of time and worked hard on that case, and
But,
we should have won, and we didn't win. So
I'm very curious to
Interesting.
hear how your new case goes. And have there been any decisions yet since this came down from the Biden administration?
through the grapevine, I haven't heard any, and I haven't gone out and looked at the case law to see if there is any. But it's certainly.
I imagine some attorneys have started to test the.
Oh yeah, I imagine. Hopefully, there's no cases reported because they're just rolling over and agreeing that it should be discharged.
Sure.
And so if there's no contest, there's no case, there's no reported decision.
What's Pollyanna thinking, Schwitalla?
A guy can hope.
A guy can
A guy can
dream.
dream, right? I can dream, can I? Don't take that away from me, Leslie.
No, but now you've made me want to go research this because I'm like, I have like 10 referrals for you to do right now.
Right?
If this works, you let me know because I know
No.
a lot of lawyers.
Well, the downside is you got to file a bankruptcy, right?
I hear
And
you,
so
I
there
hear
might
you,
be,
I hear you.
like in this
So you gotta
particular
get-
case, this guy files he's in a Chapter 7. He doesn't have any obligation to make any payments to creditors. He doesn't have any non-exempt assets. He doesn't have any transfers to friends and family members. He doesn't make, quote unquote, too much money because of his family size. And
Yeah.
so he qualifies for Chapter 7. The problem is with a lot of professionals, they're not going to necessarily qualify for a 7. That means they're going to be committed to a 5-year repayment plan in a Chapter 13. They don't have to pay all of it, but in some cases they would.
Yeah.
In many cases, they would have to make a payment that's uncomfortably large. But, I'm always willing to talk to them and give them the straight scoop on what their options are.
Uncomfortably large. I like that.
Yes.
I feel like my payments are uncomfortably large already.
Coke,
It's like
0. Whores, 0.
Gold faucet, 0.
Right,
I mean,
all
we're
3 of
failing at
those.
life, guys. We're failing at life. We have none of those things.
Are like a mortgage.
For a lot of people.
They're a
sure.
mortgage.
Or more.
I mean, for me, it's a mortgage, basically. It's just under the mortgage that I pay for,
No, there's a lot of people in the
And I'm thankful and I knock on wood that I can pay it and I'm doing well, but I can easily imagine how most people are.
No, there's a lot of people in the 20 to 20-year to 40-year age range that, can't get a home because they can't afford one because they're paying their
100%.
student loans.
100%. Yeah. It's
But
bad.
anyway,
Fantastic.
we can't go back in time. I tell that to a lot of clients. There's no rewind button in life because, they keep, well, what if this would have happened? I'm like, it didn't happen.
That doesn't
matter.
And this is why I say that if I ever had children, this is a conversation I would very much have.
You would make a great mom.
Fuck that. On that note.
Side note.
You don't know me, Jimmy. I'm an anti-kid kind of girl.
Uh,
My dogs
if
will
you had a
love me
baby-
unconditionally until the day they die.
and your child will not. But you would love your child unconditionally.
Your child will
Trust
not.
me.
Terrible.
And they will cost much more money. But still.
Right?
But I digress. On that note, I think we're out of time. Is there anything you would like to share with our viewing and listening audience before we
Like
go?
what?
Any final words of wisdom?
You
Have
gotta
I-
go
Jerry,
get
did you
your
ever
gold
watch Jerry
faucets,
Springer?
your titties,
Yes.
and everything
So you
else
know how Jerry
before
Springer,
you file a chapter
listen,
7.
Jerry Springer would end every show with the same quote. They would all beat the crap out of each other, and then he'd get on camera and he'd say, "Take care of yourselves and each other."
Oh, that is a psychopath.
I always thought it was hilarious after everyone beat the crap out of each other on his show.
Well, the few Instagram posts that I do,
Tell
I
me.
typically,
Are you on Instagram?
yeah, but not a lot. Not a lot.
You're on my Facebook.
Not a lot.
I don't know. I post stuff to Instagram and then it goes to Facebook. But
What is going on today with people anti-Facebook but on Instagram?
It's we are
Facebook
geriatric
is like for old
millennials,
people.
my friend.
that's what I.
Facebook is for old people. Ya lo último, okay? This is
I don't-
unbelievable.
Okay, all right. We digress. Are those the closing words?
No,
Facebook is
well,
for old
no.
people?
And racist.
My hashtag is do something nice for somebody.
I like that.
Aw.
Do something nice for somebody. I like that.
so.
And with that, we will end this episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you, Jimmy, for coming on.
Thanks
and
for
we'll
having me.
Yep, and we'll see you again next time on LSYSK.